Jeff. Speak to my I'm Ruth Henry. I'm the writer and the director of Bombs and Blooms, and thank you for coming this evening. It's good to have you all here. Have some of the family of the fellow who this story is about. Bombs and Blooms is a story that's loosely based on my husband's uncle, who was a B-17 pilot during World War II, and he flew 28 bombing missions in Europe. And he left some navigator logs that are authentic records of the bombing missions that he flew. And tonight you're going to see this cockpit illuminated. This is a B-17 behind me. It's the Memphis Belle. It was in the movie Memphis Belle, so if you haven't seen that, that's a great movie. That would be a good follow-up to tonight's presentation. Daniel Henry was a Silver Star recipient, and he was a real artist warrior. He was a very sensitive soldier. He worked in a flower shop before he enlisted, and that'll play out on the stage before you. I want to thank our sponsors. We have the American Legion Post 0271, the BFW Post 5005, Community Bank, and ESL. We also received a grant from Livingston Arts, which is the Genesee Valley Council on the Arts. The stage reading was a component of that grant. So this is a stage reading tonight. Any type of theater requires imagination and requires the audience to engage. A stage reading requires a little more from you. A stage reading, we have very minimal sets and props, and so you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit more tonight. Another way that you could actually participate in this is we have surveys. This is the first time this script has been presented, so you have an opportunity to help shape this for future productions. So if you would, at the end, take 5 minutes, please, and fill out a survey. There'll be some ladies or people with baskets there, and these little surveys and pens or pencils. And just take a minute and give us a little feedback, if you would. It would help us for the future. So that's how you can do your part in this stage reading. Another way you can do your part is to recycle the program. There's a basket over there. Restrooms are out that door. Exits are there. We've got one over this way, and there's one in the back. And this is a good time to turn off your cell phones, if you haven't done so. And now I would like to ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You know, I drove past the Wilson's house this morning and noticed a window flag with the stars.
Oh, they've had that up for months. Wilsons are a good family. They should be so honored to have 3 sons serving in the military.
Yeah, well, what I noticed, I'm sorry to tell you, is that one of the stars is gold. They must have lost one of their boys over there.
Oh, Lord, I haven't heard that yet. Seems everybody's losing someone. Family member, a neighbor.
I thought you might like to send Mrs. Wilson a card and some flowers.
I will. I'll stop over and take her some food and a lovely bouquet.
That's good, Gloria. As a matter of fact, I have a delivery in that neighborhood on Thursday. We can close up the shop, and you can ride along.
I hate to close up the shop, Wally. If we could hire a helper, we wouldn't have to close.
Gloria, we talked about this before Hank enlisted. We just don't have enough business to replace him.
Walter will lose more business if we keep closing the shop. And let me remind you, I am 68 years old, and I'm beginning to feel it. I know our orders have been down since the war, but maybe we could find somebody to help out. Somebody to do the heavy lifting.
And where are you going to find someone to do the heavy lifting? The young men are all at war. The ones with the brawn and the brains are in Europe fighting the Nazis.
Don't remind me. I know where Hank is.
No, you don't.
Well, I do. Maria tells me when he writes his letters, they're from someplace in England. England doesn't sound so bad. It sounds pretty civilized over there.
I know, Gloria. Don't worry about Hank. He'll come home, you'll see. And all this worrying will be for nothing. But why, he's probably having the time of his life right now. Flying up there in the clouds with his Army Corps buddies, laughing, joking, earning medals and all. Why, he might be having such a good time, he may not want to come home.
Ludwigshafen, Germany. Target, IG Farben Chemical Works at Ludwigshafen, Germany, near Mannheim. Total distance, approximately 1,000 miles. We flew in 751, which was twin flexibles in the nose. We're number 2, second element, low squadron, lead group. Fighter support was marvelous. P-47s, P-38s, and Spits. Bombed by Pathfinder through heavy cloud cover and never saw target. Formation was attacked by at least 16 FW-190s, with brunt from 6 o'clock. Also dropped aerial bombs. Flak was fairly heavy, but accurate only for about 10 minutes, long enough to put a hole in each of our wings. Once again, we saw a fort right next to us get hit and go down. Wilson flying Niederer's ship 078. He was jumped by 5 190s and headed for cloud cover. Whole crew flew for a total time of 8 hours. Only malfunctions, Mongrew's gun and oxygen mask. Frozen.
I'll tell you what, Gloria, you know, some days I'm feeling my age too. We'll look for someone that just part-time. But I'll tell you right now, I'm not very hopeful about finding anyone. We can put a sign in the window and ask around and see who shows up.
Well, you'll have to be able to drive. You'll have to be good with people. You'll be out on deliveries.
Of course, but just remember, whoever we hire, it won't be Hank.
Oschersleben, Germany. Target, FW-190 factory at Oschersleben, Germany. As I sit here in quiet retrospect, it's amazing that we're even living. Our group lost 11 ships and crews, while the total American loss was at least 54 bombers. Biggest disaster since Schweinfurt. We were under steady fighter attack for 1 hour and 1/2 by the Luftwaffe's first team, due to the fact that our target was but 60 miles east-southeast of Berlin. Were those boys good? Due to a gross mistake on the part of Bomber Command, every wing but R3 were ordered back before reaching the target. And worst of all, our fighter escort also was ordered back. Those fighters chopped us to bits. However, we did bomb the primary target and did gain valuable experience as a team. Landed at alternate base. Total combat time, 7 hours, 45 minutes.
You home, Maria? It's me, Maxine.
I know you're not, Maxine. The door's not locked. Come in.
Oh! I see you got the new issue of Ladies' Home Journal. Anything good? What's the article you're reading? A victory garden? What's a victory garden?
Have a seat, Maxine. You want coffee?
he drinks it like it's water. With the rationing, we run out almost every week, and Arthur gets crabby. Don't get me started.
So Arthur's crabby. What's new? At least now he has an excuse. How is it with the baby? Any kicks yet?
Well, thought I felt a flutter last night, but probably just indigestion. Hey, this coffee's not bad. A little weak, but not bad at all. So tell me about this, Victory Garden.
Uncle Sam wants us to help with the war effort by help planting our own vegetables so we can send the catalans to the soldiers. Who knows? Maybe something we grow will end up on Hank's table.
St. Adrian, France. Target, rocket gun installations at 4943 North, 0059 East, near Eureville, France. Bomb load, 12 by 500 HE. The whole crew's first real milk run, in which we saw no enemy fighters and but 6 bursts of flak. Due to cumulus cloud formation, shadows, and blending of target with woods, we were forced to make 10 runs, good proof of P-47 cover. Even then, we believe only the edge of the target area was hit.
Says here, we can all have a part in the victory by growing our own food. Never had a garden before. I think it's a good idea. I think we could do it.
Wait a minute. Who's the we?
A few of us who live here in the apartment. There's a vacant lot next door, nothing but weeds. It gets plenty of sun, and we could run the hose from the spigot on that side of the apartment building. Maybe Arthur would help us dig up the ground.
My Arthur? Don't hold your breath. I don't think his hands have ever held a shovel before.
Come on, Maxine. I know the doctor says Arthur has a disability, but he gets around okay. And we gotta do what we can do to help our boys. Talk to Arthur, will you?
Okay. I'll talk to him. You heard from Hank?
No letter yet this week.
Heck, this stupid war's gotta be over soon, and then you'll have him back home again. I don't know how you do it, Hank over there, gone so long. As for me, I could never stand to have Arthur away that long. You know, we have our ups and our downs, but I like having him around. But look at you. You're strong and independent. You're coping so well. You're doing just great. Me? I could never.
when it's hard. Alone. Don't you think I miss him in the morning? Don't you think I miss him in the day? Don't you think I miss him when the sun goes down? When I close my eyes to cry? I would love to see his face, his head upon my pillow, feel his arms around me in a warm embrace, share the simple rhythms of life together, hear the music of his voice. I miss his voice. Don't you think I miss him? You can't know how I miss him. Every day I miss him. I do.
Oh, honey, of course you do. I'm sorry. You're right. I can't know what it's like for you, having Hank gone over there. And I'm really proud of both of you. And, you know, I'm sure you'll hear from him soon. Hey, you got any sugar? It's Arthur's birthday Friday, and I want to make him a cake. I'll treat you a cup of sugar for 2 eggs. How's that for a deal?
You can keep the eggs, Maxine, for the baby. You can have the sugar.
Gee, thanks, Maria. Thanks a lot. And I'll save you a piece of cake. And just remember, if you ever get lonely, we're right upstairs.
Thanks, Maxine. Oh, and remember to talk to Arthur about the Victory Garden?
Right.
Germany. Target, Frankfurt, Germany. After the usual ritual of preparation and assembly over England, we headed for enemy coast, only to get perhaps 20 miles inside Belgium and be ordered to abandon the mission and come home. We would really have been meat for enemy fighters the way our formation broke up. We did see 18 enemy single-engine fighters coming after us, but at the sight of a group of 47s coming over the coast, they hightailed it for home. We were also fired at by coastal anti-aircraft, about 30 inaccurate bursts. For some unknown reason, we were not credited with the mission.
Lieutenant Daniels, private. Permission to enter, sir. Permission granted. Hey, Hank. Richie.
Letter to Maria or Mom? I don't see any hearts or arrows, so it must be Mom. Am I right?
Yeah. We sure had it on today, didn't we, Hank? Sure we did, kid. I guess we busted the hell out of that Nazi naval base. I wish we could have stayed to see those ships explode after we dropped all them bombs. Yeah, me too, kid, me too. Those clouds sure were thick up there this morning.
It's a good thing you get on course, though, Dad. You do it every time.
Yeah, we all did. The navigator did his job. You gunners did your job. We all did. That's what we gotta do every time.
I see you've been picking
Flowers again.
nice daisies.
They're not daisies, they're echinacea. But how would you know?
Yeah, you're the only flower picker around here.
The barracks need some beauty.
Don't you think I'm enough?
Not in the daylight.
Oh, that's not what the girls think.
Oh, and what do girls know?
More than I usually give them credit for. You know, I bet they'll have us out on a mission again tomorrow morning. Let's hope it's France, not Berlin.
We'll go where we're told.
After that, Pops.
And I'll see you in the men's hall tomorrow morning.
Oh, you'll see me, but I won't be eating. No, I never came for my breakfast on the morning of the mission.
Oh, that's right. You're the puker. Glad we didn't have to find that out at 10,000 feet. How many missions you got left, Richie? I lost count.
13.
Lucky.
Damn right I'm lucky. Both of us are. Hank, you know, I heard a rumor that only 20% of the crews actually make it to the complete 25.
Yeah, I heard that rumor too. 25! That magic number. We'll get there, kid. 25, 25. We'll hope and pray we're still alive. We'll compete and complete our 25. Then we'll go home to our sweethearts, home to our dolls, wearing lots of medals, see our pictures on the walls, marching a parade, crush confetti on my hair, tell war stories from an easy chair, eat apple pie at Mama's kitchen table, keep your elbows off the table if you're able, go to the movies on a Saturday night, kiss our honeys in the moonlight.
That's right, I'll...
25, 25. We'll hope and pray we're still alive. We'll compete and complete our 25. 25, 25. That's a lucky number and we'll hope we're still alive. We'll go back to the States and civilian life. Who knows? Maybe find a wife. You never know. 25, 25. We'll hope and pray we're still alive. We'll compete and complete our 25. God willing, 25.
Attention soldiers, this is your commander speaking. I regret to inform you of a new ruling from the War Department. Due to the escalation of the war, the number of combat missions required to complete a tour of duty will be raised from 25 to 28 effective immediately. Go get 'em, boys.
Oh, hi, Maria. It's good to see you, dear.
Hi, Gloria.
Everything okay? Have you heard from Hank?
Not yet this week, but I'm sure I'll get a letter soon. Maybe tomorrow.
Wilhelmshaven, Germany. Target, Wilhelmshaven, Germany. Today we hit this important German naval base. We have never seen such heavy cloud formations, low temperatures, and dense contrails. We lost our own group in a cone through the overcast and bombed with the 91st. With the exception of heavy accurate flak over the target and sweating out a collision with another 17, it was a milk run. We saw no enemy fighters, but plenty of our own, including 47s, 38s, and 51s. After bombs away, we descended from 23,000 feet to 20,000 feet, where we broke through the dense clouds over the North Sea and came on home alone without a hitch. We had flak hit terribly close, but surprisingly received but one tiny hole.
The postman is probably putting a letter in your mailbox right now, honey. Oh, we miss Hank around here. And we don't see enough of you either. Oh, thank you, Virgil.
Miss Keats?
How's Virgil working out?
Hank, but he's doing the best with what we give him. Virgil's okay on errands and deliveries, and he keeps the shop clean. And he helps carry supplies and such. We don't let him deal with the customers too often, though. Some of them have a problem dealing with colored men.
I'm glad he's working out. He seems like a nice man.
Oh, he's quiet, he's harmless, he's strong as an ox. Cheerful employee, keeps to himself, likes the job, even though it's part-time.
How is business these days? You staying busy?
A little off, as you can imagine. All the young men who usually send flowers to the objects of their affections are all off fighting the war.
Well, us objects languish without.
Oh dear, I hope you're not languishing. If you are, come by and see me. Maybe if I have enough work, I'll give you some. I'd like the company. My goodness, just this week we had an anniversary and 4 funerals. I'm sorry, dear. I shouldn't have said that. My goodness, these flowers are beautiful, aren't they? But they have no smell. You'd think a flower this pretty would have a smell. Tell me, honey, how's your new job?
It's funny. I never dreamed I'd be married and working. Certainly not at a munitions factory. But it's almost my second week, and I'm starting to get into the routine of it.
Well, that's good. It's good that you're getting out and meeting people.
It's mostly old women. Soldiers' wives and single gals. It's quite a sorority. Did I tell you? They have us actually wear pants to work.
My Lord!
A one-piece pantsuit with snaps from here to here. The way they have us crawling all over those planes, we certainly can't be wearing a dress.
God, they've got you crawling all over those big planes, wearing pants. Lord have mercy. Next thing you know, you'll be a poster girl like that Rosie the Riveter.
Ah, good old Rosie, doing her part front to Sam. While other girls attend their favorite cocktail bar, sipping dry martinis, munching caviar, there's a girl who's really putting them to shame. Rosie is her name.
All the day long, whether rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the Riveter.
Keeps the sharp lookout for sabotage. Sitting up there on the fuselage. That little girl can do more than a male can do. Rosie, the Riveter.
Rosie's got a boyfriend, Charlie. Charlie's a Marine. Rosie is protecting planes you're working on. Virgil, come on, give me a hand.
Yes, sir, Mr. Keach.
By the way, did I tell you that my brother-in-law is coming home from the army this weekend?
Oh, that's wonderful, Maria.
My sister, she is just beside herself, cleaning and sprucing up, wants the house to look all nice and homey for his return.
Of course she does, honey.
I was thinking it would be nice to bring her some flowers, you know, to brighten up the house and make it special and all. I wonder if you have anything extra, if you could throw together a bouquet, maybe it doesn't matter what type of flower.
I'll see what I have in the refrigerator. Of course.
Hello, Virgil.
Hello, Mr. Daniels.
I know you've been working here a month or so. Gloria says you're a great help.
Yes, ma'am. I'm mighty happy to have you work.
You're from somewhere down south, aren't you? I can tell by the way you talk.
Yes, ma'am. Once I open my mouth, it's a dead giveaway. I ain't no Yankee.
It's very true. Tell me, Virgil, how did you end up here at Keats?
Well, Miss Maria, that's a long story.
Sometimes the best stories are the longest stories.
I rode the back seat of the bus all the way from Alabama. I rode the back seat of the bus all the way from Alabama. Yeah, I had to sit in the back because I was black from Alabama. I was looking for a job but couldn't find one that could pay. And my sister-in-law got a visit from the KKK. Oh yeah, I woke up the next day, I knew I couldn't stay, so I made my way, set forth, headed north. I rode the back seat of the bus all the way from Alabama. I rode the back of the bus, yes I did, the way from Alabama. I rode the back of the bus and I couldn't make a fuss from Alabama, where the Negroes are drowning and the whites fly away. We're not welcome to go, neither welcome to stay. And that's just part of the story, how I ended up here today. I had to leave the South on account of survival, but the welcoming committee missed my arrival, so I pounded the pavement, looking for shelter, seen a sign in the wind, looking for a helper, and yes, that's my story, how I ended up here today. From Alabama.
But your family?
My folks passed years ago. I have a brother. His name is Jake. And he flies planes, just like your husband.
For the army?
Yes, ma'am. My little brother. He's a Tuskegee Airman. And yes, he's a Negro fighter pilot. Tuskegee is in Alabama.
My Hank wrote me about these Tuskegee airmen once. They escorted his bomber.
I bet you they came back safe, didn't they?
Birkenau, Germany. Target, Berlin. Once again, thank God, we finally hit the big beat. The actual target was a ball bearing plant in the eastern suburbs. We think we hit it. Can't see when you're getting jumped by the whole Luftwaffe, and they were aiming right at us. We were under intense frontal attack by at least 30 Me-210s, 50 FW-190s and Me-109s, and about 30 Me-110s. Even the ME-410 was up there working us over. This combination 30 cal rocket and millimeter fighter lasts for about an hour. We lost quite a few ships, but we also kicked hell out of Jerry. On their first pass, we got 2 before they hit us. When our fighters got there, they proved conclusively that plane for plane, we can take them. The 51s, 47s, and 38s murdered them. We could see the ground all the way in and flew by Bremen, Hanover, and Berlin. We also saw a hell of a lot of flak, some red. I wonder what Goebbels will tell the super race after they saw those 1,000 bombers and our fighters.
I wonder if your brother was one of his escort pilots.
God only knows. One thing I do know, those Red Tails have a lot of courage and a mighty fine track.
Red tails?
That's the nickname for the Tuskegee Airmen. They paint the tails of their planes red.
Well, I see you two are getting along.
Virgil was telling me about his family.
Yes, ma'am. I sure am proud of my brother, Chief.
We are proud of all our boys.
Here's the ad for the dance Friday night. You should really come with us. It's a USO event to support the troops. Plus, you'll have fun.
Reims, France. Target. Reims, France. This is a hard one to write about. It was supposed to be a milk run. However, just after bombs away, a flak shell burst inside our fuselage, killing Jimmy, Rich, and Frank, as well as injuring Carl, who was administered first aid by Skip. There was a hole in each side of the fuselage big enough to drive a truck through. Coolness, skill, and an escort of P-38s got us back to the base, where 5 of the remaining crew bailed out safely. The pilot and co-pilot then took the ship to the coast, headed it to sea, and went out themselves. There's no use going into detail. We just thank God that we're alive.
I don't know about going to a dance. I'm really not in much of a party mood with Hank gone and all. I'm really not much of a dancer either.
Now that part I can help you with. The jitterbug is simple. Watch this. Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick. Come on, do it with me. Come on. Yeah. Ready? Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick. Keep doing it. See? Then you can add some things to it. Like what? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. That's it. Now we just add some music. You're doing great. You're natural. See? You got the hang of it. You'll get better once you get the hang of it a little more. Loosen up. Have a cocktail or two.
Oh, I don't. But besides, what do I wear?
Not the pantsuit, that's for sure. We'll go through your closet. I'm sure you have something cute. As for me, I'm wearing my pink sweater with the green dress with the flowers and the V now. V for victory.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is George Gunn speaking for the Bethlehem Steel Company, builders of ships for victory, asking you, whose war is this? It is your war, my war, every American's war. Now here is Hugh James with the story of a flyer who proved you can't always tell a man's mettle by his hobby.
The ground crew watching the B-17 Fortress come in must have wondered if their eyes were playing them tricks. But there were no tricks. That was the Fortress, Hoodad, all right, and she did appear to be flying in 2 pieces. The ground men saw a figure leap from the crippled ship, and a parachute blossom. Then one by one, and quickly, 4 other men parachuted out of the plane. As the 5 airmen floated down toward the bomber base, the crippled fort turned back toward the channel. Later, the puzzled ground crew learned the whole story. The fort had been on a raid on Reims, France, and while it had been over a target, a direct hit by flak blew off 30 feet of the fuselage behind the radio room. Only 4 slender struts and the catwalk, 2.5 feet wide, held the tail to the front of the bomber. No wonder the Hoodad had appeared to be flying in 2 pieces. With the elevator and rudder controls shot away, the big ship went into a dive. For 5,000 feet, she hurtled down toward the French countryside until Lieutenant Henry Daniels of Queens managed to bring her out of it. Maybe, he said later, the Lord was back there steering it. The extensive damage called for speedy action if the fort was to get back to its base. While Lieutenant Daniels headed her for home, the top turret gunner, Sergeant Sebastian Charisma of New York City, spliced the rudder controls. Charisma also tried to climb back to the tail to find out what happened to the tail gun, but there wasn't enough for him to hold on to. The tail gunner's fate is uncertain. From then on, the 7 men in the ship knew it would be a fight all the way to keep the bomber going. Whether or not they'd make it depended largely on the skill of Lieutenant Daniels. Well, by bathing in the ship, they did make it. Daniels circled the base and the 5 men, all but himself and co-pilot, bailed out. Daniels and the co-pilot headed the plane channelward and bailed out over the coast. The Hoodad crashed into the sea with the bodies of 2 waist gunners who had been killed by anti-aircraft fire. But that isn't the end of the story. When the news reached New York that Lieutenant Daniels lived in Queens, the newsmen dug up some facts about his past. They talked to his mother. They found out that Lieutenant Daniels, age 26, is one of 5 brothers, all in the armed services. His father is a shipyard worker, and your lieutenant's hobby, flowers. You heard right, flowers. When he attended high school, he even worked for a flower shop to make pocket money. He learned how to make floral designs for weddings and things. And the kids in the high school used to make fun of him. Hank Daniels had to take a lot of kidding and wisecracking.
We'll have to admit that flowers and bombers are a strange combination, that there isn't much connection between designing floral pieces and babying a bomber back to its base after it's almost cut in 2. But the combination of Lieutenant Daniels' job and that of his father, the father building war weapons and the son using them, is certainly an understandable one. Perhaps you don't have a son in the service, but there's someone near to you that you can dedicate your war work to. More men are needed to do the same vital work Lieutenant Daniels' father is doing, building ships. And such men are urgently needed at the Bethlehem Sparrows Point Shipyard near Baltimore. Here is your chance to help our fighting men learn a technical trade and be paid while learning. Go as soon as you can to the Employment Office of Bethlehem Steel Company, 102 Chamber Street, corner of Church Street, New York City. Open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, and on Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you are now in essential war work, a release is necessary. Bethlehem Steel Company, makers of ships for victory, invite you to be with us again tomorrow night at the same time.
I know how you enjoy those long, newsy letters
sorry. I don't have it in me much to write tonight. This has been one of those hottest days. And I miss you. And I'm coming home soon. They were my boys. They were my soldiers. They had no fear in life, had no fear in death. They were my boys. They are my heroes. They served their country well, served me well. They're calling me a hero 'cause I stayed alive. I shouldn't take the credit, fate was on my side. They were my men, they are my heroes. Any praise to me belongs to these three who gave their lives, who gave it all, answering the highest call. So when medals are pinned to my chest, I will remember you gave your best. And when they are singing my praise, I'll be saluting your grace. They were my boys. They are my heroes. They were my soldiers. And when you are singing my praise, I'll be saluting your grace. They were my boys. They are my heroes. They were my soldiers. They were my friends.
Lieutenant Daniels, please report to the mess hall immediately. Your new crew members have arrived.
Arthur says he stopped on by this afternoon. Sorry I wasn't home. I was visiting my aunt. That woman. Always something wrong with everything okay?
to fight, dropping bombs, killing people, hundreds and maybe even thousands of innocent people. I just wonder what it's done to his heart, to his soul.
Oh, honey, he'll be home soon, and he'll be with you and the rest of his family, and pretty soon all this will be far behind him.
I sure hope so.
Sure it will. He'll be fine. You'll both be fine. Hey, what about this? Any idea what he's gonna do when he gets home? For a job, I mean?
I'm not sure. He'll probably stop over at Kate's Flowers again, at least to say hello. I don't know if they'll have any work for him since Virgil is working out so well.
Well, I'm sure Gloria and Virgil will be real glad to see him. And if they don't have a job for him, they might know someone else who's hiring. He'll find something. Well, I have to go get dinner started, or Arthur and his stomach will be growling. But I'm real glad you shared this news with me. And everything will be fine. But just be glad he's coming home to you.
Thanks for coming over, Max. Say hello to Arthur.
Well, Maria, she never made it to the beauty salon that day or the next day. But the day after that, they went over to see Wally and Gloria. They gushed over Hank, and naturally, Gloria wanted to beat him. Hank delighted in being reunited with his friends and his flowers. Gloria introduced Virgil and established the Tuskegee Airmen Connection. They agreed an Allied victory would be a sure and soon thing. Walter asked Hank about his plans for the future. He told him that he and Gloria were talking about retiring. Hank and Maria had managed to save a little money, so he asked Wally if they would consider selling the business. They quickly reached an agreement, and Maria and Henry Daniels soon became the new owners of Keith's Florist Shop. Virgil was retained. Maria quit her job at the munitions factory and stayed home to raise their family. Henry Daniels, the artist warrior, finished his career flourishing as a florist.